to make a calligram, and as part of Poetry Week. So first of all, what is a calligram? Apart from being quite difficult to pronounce, they are poems written in the shape of an image, apparently made famous by the French poet Apollinaire. Here's an example here. There are many other examples, but the first stage, I suppose, is to figure out what kind of words you might use to represent your animal. You can see other examples here. So for example, this bird, it's lovely. Lots of words describing what the bird is. A bat. And we could also look at, say, for example, for octopus, they just took the words octopus and then made, I guess, a mnemonic, what each letter is, and then they use that to build the animal here. We are going to look at some particular animals from the V&A collection. So we're going to look at Miss Clara. And we are also going to look at, so this is Miss Clara, and we're also going to look at the Senegalese elephant as well, which doesn't have a name. Now, we might want to get people to think about words which represent the elephant, their journey, or what comes to mind. Or we might get them to write a poem and then to pick out some of those words when they're making their calligram. I'm going to be upfront and say that actually most of what I'm going to do is going to be based on this tutorial here. However, this is for Photoshop, and we're going to use a free alternative called Photopea. Hopefully we'll make something equally as appealing as this. There's also a text guide that I'm going to upload as well, so pupils can follow along this text guide as to how to use it to create a calligram. Right, so let's use photopea.com. That's the website we're going to go to. And I'm going to go to File and New. We're going to use a print file so that it could be printed easily. I guess if you're doing something for social media like Instagram or Insta Story or YouTube cover, well, probably not a YouTube cover, but there are preset settings. We're going to go to print. We are going to choose A4. We're not going to use any of these templates. We are just going to go to create. I think it's best with both the Senegalese elephant and Miss Clara, the rhino, to go landscape. Therefore, we are going to go to image, transform, and then I'm going to rotate 90 right. We then need to find a image of a rhino and an elephant. I suppose you don't have to use Miss Clara. You could use any elephant. You could use any rhino or any Senegalese elephant if you wish. They'll probably give you a bit more resolution if you did. So say, for example, if I chose rhino, you've got these which are probably a bit more detailed, and that might be slightly better, although some might argue not quite in the shape of Miss Clara, so not truly representing her. There's a very cute baby rhino here as well. Let's say, for example, we go for a rhino you're going to need to be able to see its feet. That's going to be quite key. Otherwise, the shape won't be correct. So, let's go for this one here. It's not quite the same, is it? This stage, we're probably spending a bit too much time on it, and I might just actually go to Miss Clara because it's kind of a nice one to use. Now let's right-click this image, and we're going to save the image as. I'm going to place it into pictures, and I'm going to give it a good name like Rhino Miss Clara. May help if I spell it correctly. Save. But yeah, feel free to use any animal you want. Okay, and then we're going to go to File and then Open and Place. This is back in Photopea. Go into your pictures, And then here are some of the older images that I've used, like the elephant, but we're going to use the rhino. Now, when you're resizing this, you probably want to hold down Shift as such, and that way you won't skew it. If you do not hold down Shift, what will happen is you may end up with a really long, thin rhino or a really tall one, and that doesn't really reflect who Miss Clara is. So we'll just hold down Shift, and that way we've got it there. Now, once again, if you want to flip the image because you want Miss Clara facing the other way, we can also do that. So we can go to Image, Transform, and we'll flip it horizontally, and then Miss Clara's facing the other way. For some reason, that seems more aesthetically pleasing. I then need to outline Miss Clara. The way we're going to do that is we're going to add a new layer. A few ways of doing that. You can either press this button down here, or what you can do is you can go to Layer, New Layer. That's a quick way as well, and you'll find the new layer there. We're going to get a brush, and we're going to start tracing an outline around Miss Clara. I think when you look at a size 15 brush, you'll see it's really fine and not that forgiving, depending on, I suppose, how accurate your mouse skills are. And I definitely would not use a touchpad for this. You need a mouse. I would say probably go a bit thicker than 15 pixels, and maybe go about 25-ish. That'll just give you a bolder line and it'll be a bit more forgiving. Yeah, you're just going to draw around this shape. It is literally a guide, so I would not get too protective about this, and it doesn't need to be too accurate. I will, however, zoom in slightly. So let's just zoom in, or use Apple Plus to do that, and then we'll trace around it. But if you time it, I think I should take less than a minute. And like I said, I'm not being super accurate with this. Just doing a rough outline. And I might exaggerate some elements as well. I guess that's the beauty of poetry, in that you can kind of make up your own fiction for Miss Clara. Miss Clara, I believe, was actually a real rhino who was imported into Europe. And before Miss Clara was imported to Europe, people actually thought that rhinos were mythical creatures. They didn't actually believe that they existed. They thought they were like unicorns or something. So therefore, she's quite pioneering, although we spoke about how it would have been possibly quite a traumatic experience. You imagine what kind of conditions Miss Clara was transported under during those times. And, bit of an error there, but it's fine. Sometimes I trace around both legs, sometimes just the one, but we can add that back in later. There we go, and that took a couple of minutes. And I'm just going to kind of try and dream up what her leg looks like. Okay, then we now need to create different sections for each of our words. And actually, the more sections you have, the more accurate it's going to be, although it will take a lot longer. So say, for example, this one has obviously a lot of words, has a lot of sections in there, and this one has quite a few sections as well. But if you only have a few sections, it's not going to be as accurate. So I'm going to try and create as many sections as possible. That's going to be a word here on the leg. This here is going to be another word. On here, I'm going to create a few sections. I'm going to create one section here. You could have followed, I suppose I could have followed the ridges, the plates as well. That would have been nice. So I'm going to go this one here. And that way you get like a sense of the folds, don't you? Here, I'm just going to dream up a section here and here. I'll do this ridge here first because that's a lovely shape, like this kind of plate. And then I'll do this one here. And then I'm going to go for some horizontal words now to mix it up. Because if all I do is vertical lines, it's not going to look that appealing, right? So here we're going to, should I add in a fold there? Yeah, I could probably get in a fold there. That might be a word here. this one's another one. And then I'm going to portion this here. I don't really like the word portion because it sounds a bit... And then, what can we do here? There might be a word there. Might be another word here. There might be a word there. And then another one here. And maybe one for the horn. Like I said, it's all quite rough at the moment, but you get an idea of just creating an outline for all our text. All this is done on this layer, so when we hide this, it should roughly look like a rhino. Likewise, if you're not happy with it, I suppose you could do it again, but I wouldn't get overly precious about that. Right, next, let's add some text. So we might want to write some words about Miss Clara's journey. It might be things like her favourite food, the places she went to, like where do we think she went to, which cities do you think she went to, or who did she meet? And that might be some research that you want to do, or it might just be some emotions that you think Miss Clara was feeling as she was transported from... Where was she transported from? I'd like to know more about this. She's actually quite famous. In 1741, after a 7-month sea voyage around Africa, yeah, it was a Dutch captain that arrived in the port of Rotterdam. So you can read more about the history, perhaps pick out some key words here. Places like Hamburg, Germany, King Louis XV. So she met like some famous people, King Frederick II. And there's actually a lot about Miss Clara. A little less about the Senegalese elephant. Yeah, there's loads of things that we can pick out from there. So it could be more like a historical document. I'm just going to pick out some words which I like. So let's get a text box over here, and we want to pick a font that we like the look of. I prefer heavy font because then you can do more with the lettering. Distant Galaxy is a bit Star Warsy, so let's avoid that. And this is a bit Pac-Man like. But yeah, pick a heavyish font. East Market looks good. So let's draw out a text box. And the first word that I'm going to use is going to be bold. And you can see the writing is tiny. So what we'll need to do as well, we'll need to highlight that text. Use this slider. So there's a slider here, and I would slide that up to a decent size. Now you want to, apparently you should make these words bigger than the section it's going to fit into. This is just going to go into her leg or her hind section here. So maybe we start with this leg. I mean, that's a fairly decent size, and we can resize it later. And then we might want to pick a color as well. When you looked at this, I quite like it being multicolored. Sometimes people go for shades as well. So for example, over here, you've got a color palette where it's almost like Halloween with the green and the orange. Other ones just go pure red. So it's up to you. I would generally avoid changing the font, but having colors might work. So I might just go for a blue because that seems to work quite well over here. So let's go for this kind of blue. All right, press tick. So that's the word bold. What we are going to need to do with that is we need to rasterize it so we can change it. In order to rasterize it, we are going to right click over here, click on rasterize, and then we can rotate. And I'm going to rotate this, put this over here, make it slightly smaller, just bigger than the section that I want to go into there. And then I can start skewing that text. Might be that actually we create another section in here. So we have one for its foot and one for its leg. So we can do that as well in here. Just get that tool. That's its foot. That'll make things slightly easier for us, I think. Because you're essentially using rectangles. Go back onto the bold layer. Moving this down. And we're going to place this in its foot here. There. Now, how do you get it so that it looks a bit better and it fits in that space there? So what we need to do now is we tick it. Actually, when we were transforming that, there was something here called warp, and you can just use that straight away. So after you've resized it, you can use warp. If that doesn't appear, we can also do edit free transform, and this will come up, or even edit transform warp, and that warp tool will come up. So in the warp, what we can do is we can drag this handle down a bit, and this one, we're just getting it to fit in that space. This one needs to come right up, this one needs to come up, and we're making that text in the shape of its feet. Yeah, lovely. Yeah, let's do another one. So that's one, bold. I believe the bottom of the B might be hidden there. Let's go for another text box. Hopefully it's remembered my font. It has, and it's remembered the size as well. Heavy. Well, caps probably. It's up to you whether you go caps or not. Let's get the size down a bit. Tick. Remember to rasterize it over here. And then this is the move and resize tool. So as soon as we start moving it and resizing it, what we'll find is that this warp tool will be enabled. So I'm just going to put that about here. And then we'll press warp. Bring this up. This here. This here. This down a bit. This down a bit. As such. Okay. Next, we are going to go over here and let's make another one. Brave. This Clara's pretty brave. She's like traveling from Africa over to Europe in probably some quite torrid conditions, to be honest. Let's resize this. Rotate, so we use this tool where it curves round. Do you see outside here? When you hover over this outside curve, it's going to curve around in there. We want to go slightly bigger than the shape that we're in. Not skew that text too much. That's all right. Okay, so here you can see that warp is not enabled. You know why? Because we didn't rasterize it. That was a bit foolish. So let's just rasterize that first. Now we can kind of do that. Click on warp. This is the bit where you drag these handles and fit it in here like this. Yeah. There we go. And I'll do one more around the back, and then you'll kind of see how it's looking after a while. So we'll just put miss, tick, right click, rasterize. So we're going a bit quicker now. Rotate, make it bigger. Hold down shift when I'm stretching that. Can I move to this side? Zoom out maybe. Make this bigger. And then we are going to warp it. Bring this in here. Some people might say, hey, you've made it actually illegible. I think you can just about make out that that's a miss. All right, okay. It's got miss. I'd probably put Clara in there as well, and then I'll probably finish the tutorial. So Clara, okay, a bit bigger. There you go. Remember to rasterize. Move, resize, rotate. Place in here. And warp. More times I do this, the more I realise how the menus work. It's slightly different to Photoshop. You notice I'm not being too precious about the shape. Obviously I want to try and get it right, and I don't want to overlap too much, because if I overlap and it's blue on blue, hard to read. All right, okay. So now I've got a bit of it, and some of you might say, well, it's really hard to read. So when you take that off, and you take this off, it's starting to take shape. So Command D to deselect, or just click off it, any layer. And now you've got like bold down here, heavy, brave, Miss Clara, and you would have the shape build up over time. Now what happens if you do not finish in one session? Well, you should save it anyway as you go along. I'll show you that now. So we're going to do File and Save as a PSD. Probably save it to your documents and give it a decent name. So say, for example, Miss Clara, and then your name. So William. So I know where it is. And that's it. If you ever close this tab, you will lose your work. So don't close the tab until you've saved. And then the next time you come back to Photopea, proof is in the pudding, we are going to go to File and Open, or just open from computer, and you should find it in your documents here, there, Miss Clara William PSD, and it's ready to go. If you do finish the whole thing and you manage to come up with something beautiful like this, could be multicolored, might not be, depending on how you do it, then you want to do File and then Export As, and we will do a PNG or a JPEG, I'd say maybe a JPEG, and that way we'll be able to use it a bit more in a more versatile way, so we can print it and showcase it, copy it to other documents, etc. I would always go, it's on 100% at the moment, but you can pan around it wherever we are. Oh, where's our actual thing? Yeah, even though it's text, and when you're saving this, I'd just go 100% in terms of the quality, and then press save. That'll download in here. You can show it in your Finder window, and this is what it should look like. And that's the working one. And I think we'll stop there because that's already like 25 minutes, and we don't want it to drag too long. But hopefully that's useful in showing you how to start making a calligram using Photopea, which is a free alternative to Photoshop. One last tip, if you're doing this with, say, primary age pupils, or if you are a primary age pupil yourself and you want something a bit simpler, or you find this really struggling but you've got the ideas down, then what you can do is you can also use wordclouds.com. So word clouds will enable you to put a cloud, like make your own word cloud using whatever fonts and colors. You just type in your word list, so we'll just say edit. These are all the words at the moment. How do you take them all? So can we delete them all? Select all. Click or drag arrows to select them. Oh yeah, like that. And then can we delete all of them? I just want to start a new one, really. Wow, it's hundreds. Select all, my bad. Delete them all. And you could add in your own words. Say, for example, he says. Okay. Wordless. Edit. How do we... would help if I had researched this first. No data available. Okay, stop multi-select. Add a new word. So you could have all these words like bold. Can we just press enter? You can't. Brave. Miss Clara. So you can add them in like this. Apply. I mean, I've only got 4 words in there. Autofit. You can turn on repeat words, and that way it'll just keep repeating on that slider there. But then in terms of shape, I think there is an elephant and there's definitely a rhino. So in here, if you do elephant, you could have a Senegalese elephant, like this, I suppose. It's quite lovely. Or, I don't actually know if that's a Senegalese elephant, but it's definitely an elephant. This is the number of times I think you can reuse words, or maybe is that the size of it? Yeah. And actually, don't know. What does that do? Yeah, I think it's the number of occurrences that use it. And then if you choose, say, for example, Rhino, there is actually a Rhino which looks a bit like Miss Clara. I mean, pretty similar. So you could do that instead if you're finding Photopea quite challenging. But I think there's a great reward in using Photopea, so maybe stick with Photopea. But if not, if you're doing it with younger pupils and you just want to see the magic of this kind of generator, then we can save that as an image as well. I think that's standard definition. This is high def, so maybe go high def and then JPEG. If you want to save it so that you can work on it later, you can also do file, save the word cloud, or do a new word cloud as such. So hopefully that's useful in making a calligram or word cloud based on an animal shape. I believe you can also upload your own images. So theoretically, rather than icons, colored text, you could upload a picture of a Senegalese elephant. It does say white or transparent background when you do that. So if you are doing that, then make sure that you go to Tools, Color, Transparent. And you could, say for example, take this, save the image as, because then it would be actually transparent. Put that into pictures, and then okay, I'll go to our free online word thing, wordclouds.com, upload this transparent one. Let's see if that works. Apply. Yeah, it works as well. So you could upload your own image and do it that way as well. That's the quick way, I suppose. Hopefully you enjoyed that tutorial. And it was useful as well.